Final score, Solihull Moors 4, Wrexham nil. That was depressing. Just to put things into context, the last time we had a bigger margin of defeat was when Billy Barr was caretaker manager and we lost 5-0 at Luton. That was in February 2014. And coming hot on the heels of the Maidenhead and Beedleston defeats, that was not good. So, what happened? I'm not sure I can explain. It was just an absolutely absent performance. There were some extenuating circumstances around the Maidenhead game, I thought. Fewer around the Wealdstone game, but nothing really you could pull out of this to be positive. And at the end, I'll go through the performances of the individual players as normal, but it's going to be tricky. I'm glad I'm not going to try and name a man of the match. Let's put it that way. Anyway, Wrexham did have problems before kick-off. We were only able to name 3 outfield substitutes due to the amount of injuries that have racked up. But having said that, it was still a decent side that Wrexham put out, playing in a 4-3-3, essentially. Although the wide strikers were tucked in quite a lot, it was almost, well, not a box midfield, maybe a hexagon. As Wrexham started with Yusuf on his own up front, Jarvis coming on the left, Durrell on the right, Jordan Davis anchoring midfield, and James Horsfield getting the first start at right back of the season. Solihull, it's got to be said, had problems of their own. I speculated in the preview that I put on the club website that they may not be able to play their usual 3 at the back because they had so many central defenders out, either through injury or suspension. They did by playing a wide midfielder as their left-sided centre-back, and indeed he won a penalty. So in open play. So they found a good solution to their injury problems. Wrexham started fairly well. Actually, first 10 minutes weren't too bad, although it was Solihull who actually were carving out the chances. A couple of decent chances, both within a minute of each other. Firstly, a long ball up to Adam Rooney on the edge of the area. Took the ball well on his chest, and he drove a shot across goal, which just went narrowly wide of the right post. Then within a minute, a really good overlap by Cameron Cox on the right. He fed the ball inside to Store, a good chance 15 yards out in the right channel, and he put the ball similarly narrowly wide of the other post. Wrexham just weren't really threatening up front at all. Yusuf was a detached figure through the middle, getting very little surface. He did manage to injure the centre-back Howe, clattering into him and causing a bit of commotion in the 19th minute. A bit of a scramble that ended in Jay Harris winning a free kick. Luke Young took it from about 25 yards, got the direction right, but wasn't enough power, and it was a simple save for Ryan Boot. Then Solihull were back on the attack. Theo Vassell stepping up into midfield, but losing the ball to Maycock, who did well to feed the ball through for Rooney. Rooney driving at Kelleher, who was the last defender, and Kelleher did well, forced him a little bit wide in the right channel, forced him into shooting from at the edge of the box, and Leighton was able to make an awkward parry and pounce on a loose ball. Horsfield stood the ball up to the far post. It was knocked down by Young, and Record made an awkward, difficult, pirouetting volley on the turn from 6 yards out and put it wide. His standing leg just slipped on the wet surface as he was making contact. So yeah, in the first half hour, that was all that we created. A couple of minutes later, we did actually make what I would have to say was our one chance of the match. Real chance. And also, as it turns out, it was our last one as well. It was actually a Solihull corner which Wrexham broke away from well. Durrell got the ball after Kelleher done well to defend it in the 6-yard box. Durrell fed the ball out to Yusuf. I thought the chance might have gone because the pass was behind Yusuf, but Yusuf did well deep in his own half to retrieve the ball and play a super ball down the right channel. Jarvis running in with the last defender on his shoulder, hit the ball from the edge of the area, and the goalkeeper parried it. And at that point, okay, it wasn't great, but we weren't overly threatened. The pitch was sopping wet because it had been pouring down. In fact, credit to Solihull's groundsman, because I think if the pitch had been poorly maintained, that match would have been even more difficult. But the ball wasn't rolling very well, and it just looked like one of those ugly 0-0s or a game a set piece might decide, a little bit like the game in the league at Solihull earlier this season. But the problem is when you're playing in a game like that and not creating and you go behind, suddenly you find yourself behind the black. And so, is it behind the black? Snooker terms, behind the something. So, basically, that's where we found ourselves in the 39th minute when Solihull took the lead. It started off with Joe Sparrow in midfield doing really well, playing a nice ball to Rooney in the right channel, clear on goal. He was denied by a fabulous tackle by Jordan Davis, who lunged in and somehow managed at full stretch to dispossess him. The ball span to the edgy area, though Sparrow was the most alert, got to it first, drove it in, and the ball took a massive deflection and beats the absolutely helpless Leighton, and it was 1-0. That's how it was at half-time. Wrexham came out at the second, and with the first 5 minutes looked decent, got some possession going, moved it around fairly snappily in the opposing half, and then the game ended. 59th minute, as Wrexham's energy was starting to dissipate anyway. It was a breakaway first by Solihull, which didn't come to anything, but when it broke down, it came back out to Kyle Storer, and he switched the ball really cleverly to Cranston. Probably the pass that should have been made in the first breakaway. Cranston did well to hold the ball up. He'd isolated Horsfield and wait for support, and as I said in the introduction, it came from Hancock's, the wide midfielder playing at centre-back, who now went surging forwards round about outside of his wing-back. The ball was rolled into him. Durrell came across and fouled him. Wrexham were unhappy with the decision, but it was a foul. It was an attacking player's challenge. He lunged in and took him down. Penalty. Rooney, who had been cheated earlier, stepped up, drove it into the bottom left corner and went straight off the pitch. And any hope that that might have been some sort of respite was not true, because within 2 minutes his replacement, Cameron Archer, had scored. And the time was absolutely dead. 2 goals in 3 minutes. It was too simple a goal as well. Just a ball dinked down the right-hand side. Archer got in behind Vassell too easily. One-on-one with Leighton. Drew him out and dinked it nicely over him to make it 3-0. The game was over. Wrexham didn't look to have 1 goal in them. Never mind 3. They tried to change things up a bit. Dan Jarvis came off. Kwame Thomas came on. The shape was essentially the same, of Yusuf shifting out to the left side. But it made no great difference. Solihull continued to be the only side to make chances, in all honesty. Not as many now, because they knew the game was dead and they could soft pedal a little bit. Archer, bursting down the left-hand side, did well, beat Kelleher, but Leighton came out and spread himself well and took the brunt of the shot into his chest. Wrexham then brought Hall Johnson on for Horsfield to add a little bit more thrust down the right-hand side, but 3 minutes after he came on, it was 4-0. It was a record coming forwards into Solihull's half, playing a poor pass to Jay Harris, who was unable to stop Maycock from intercepting. He fed the ball forwards to Ball, and it all got very scrappy from there. And like I said, the pitch was soaking wet. Ball went lumbering into the box down the left channel, stumbled and looked to have lost the opportunity, but still somehow managed to squeeze the ball across the 6-yard box. Nobody could reach it till it came to Sparrow, who knocked in a simple goal. And it had now gone from bad defeat to embarrassment. There could have been a fifth in the first minute of added time, very similar to Archer's goal again. He raced down the right channel, was one-on-one with Leighton. This time he went more for power than a dink. Leighton stayed up well and managed to block it. But really, that was only just to make an embarrassing defeat, not even more of a catastrophe. It was not good. We just created very little. Like I said, a scuffed, speculative volley by Record and a shot from the edge by Jarvis from a crisp breakaway. That was it. It really was not good enough. And Wrexham had problems. The injuries are obviously an issue. I mean, Ponticelli for me is our number 1 striker, and we're not able to get him fit yet. That is a problem. Jeffrey has looked good, and with him on the pitch, we have driven forwards, and his injury hurts. I know he's not really been used yet this season, but when things aren't going right, Mark Carrington does feel quite reassuring. Quite frankly, I wouldn't mind having him available either. And also, when things are not going well, Sean Pearson's kind of useful, isn't he? So there are some players there that you look at and think we'd be improved if we had them available. But this team was good enough to compete, surely. I mean, I've been saying all season that I'm really impressed by the depth we've got in the squad. I'm so happy about it. So this was where it has to show, and it didn't today. It was not good at all. Leighton couldn't be blamed for anything, although he looked slightly uncomfortable in the wet occasionally. But no, he made no mistakes. Across the back, I mean, Horsfield had some issues, but wasn't the worst, in all honesty. Didn't really allow people to get past him an awful lot. I think he was sacrificed more just to try and get more attacking option on. The centre-back, so Keller had a pretty good game actually, but of course when he gets isolated he can have issues. Did well to hold Rooney off, made quite a lot of interceptions inside the box as well, so although the side letting 4 goals, Kelleher didn't do too badly. Vassell made a lot of very good interceptions, did a lot that was pleasing, but then was caught out for Archer's goal, and could have been punished when he carried the ball forwards and lost it as well. So one of those things where you can see he's got the ability, but maybe it wasn't a full 90 from him. And on the left-hand side, Record kept pushing forwards, kept scrapping away, but then he also gave the ball away for a breakaway goal. So, yeah, no great performances there. In midfield, if I had to push myself for a man of match, I'd probably go Jordan Davis, actually. He did put a lot of work in. He, Young and Harris always do, of course. Davis did play a couple of decent little passes and made some good tackles as well. And I quite enjoyed how angry he was that he did at the end of the, in the second half. He was going around and lunging into tackles. You got the feeling he was a bit frustrated, a bit annoyed, and he was trying to roll his sleeves up and do something about it. Harris had some good challenges, but lost the ball sometimes as well. Young was energetic, but couldn't really affect the game. Durrell struggled to get into the game, and likewise Jarvis had the odd nice touch, but nothing decisive. Yusuf was pretty peripheral, in all honesty. It was an ugly day's work, in all honesty. Well, frankly, roll on Tuesday. Let's see if we can get a few more players fit, and if we can actually make some sort of improvement. Because, well, I hope that was a sort of rock bottom moment. With a final score of Solihull Moors 4, Wrexham 0. I'm Mark Griffiths and the Wrexham Media team. Remember, you can subscribe to our podcasts on all the usual podcast apps. We'll get a few out. Usually we have Q&As. I couldn't bring myself to do a live Q&A after this one because I didn't know what I would say. That was not good. I didn't know what I'd say, to be frank. And lots of other stuff on the podcast. Lowdown is a scouting podcast as well. Remember, you can watch the games on the live streams, which is a good money maker for the club when we can't get fans in. And remember, we have highlights out on YouTube plus other content. So let's hope for better on Tuesday. Thanks very much for watching. Please subscribe as well so you don't miss out on any of our content, and click the bell to get notifications.